Hi, it's Heidi Slater, and welcome back to Slater Success Live. If you've been following Slater Success Live, if you've been following me, as well as her success story or podcast, you will be in the know that we have been doing a series on women leaders in technology. It has been fun. It has been really educational, at least for me, who is not a tech person and wants to learn so much. And I'm not going to use the word master because I know better, but is in that piece saying, I'm not too technology. Technology is the cornerstone of everything, how we run businesses, how the world is advancing, and I'm going to be in it. So I decided, well, what better way to learn? Let's do a series on women leaders in technology. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to an amazing woman leader, Nelly Yusupova. Nelly, you're going to correct me. Nelly is on a mission to help entrepreneurs minimize technology mistakes. You want to know why I'm having Nelly on as a guest today? She is the founder of TechSpeak. It's an online learning program developed by her, a seasoned CTO, where she teaches entrepreneurs, yes, like you and I, how to manage, develop teams and projects like a CTO without being technical, learning code, or anything else. So I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I had the pleasure of connecting with Nelly years and years and years ago. And then in the world of connecting, as we stay connected, somebody who is near and dear to my heart, when I shared this, doing this series, she said, well, you're going to have Nelly on. And so, Nelly, thank you for joining me here today.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure to reconnect. And yes, when you reached out, I'm like, yay, of course.
So, I talk a lot about the value of connections, the value of building long-lasting relationships, that business is about doing business with people, not with brands necessarily, right? The brands support the people support the brands. Years ago, you and I had the pleasure of meeting in New York City at an event by a organization you started up called Girls.
Yeah. I didn't start it, actually, just to be
Oh, you
clear.
didn't?
I didn't start it. I joined them in 97. They were already established, but it was still early days. And at some point, I became a CTO and the New York City chapter leader. And so that was a really fun time because talking about connections, I was able to, as a leader of the organization, rather than being the CTO, right? The CTO is a bigger role, but being in the leadership role out in public, that gave me so many more opportunities because all of a sudden people knew who I was, right? Versus working behind the scenes. And so there's a lot of lessons in that for me that, being a leader, if you want something to happen and you are the leadership role, you become more visible. And therefore, a lot of opportunities then start to flow through you and you get to pick and choose what you want to be a part of.
That happens to be so true. And I'll always say, encourage people to step up, step out, because that visibility really serves us. Amazing needs come our way. I'm involved in a few different organizations. And as we're on live, I've been getting text messages from a colleague of mine who does another show checking, do you know this person? I just ran into them. I heard they know you. And that's what's coming through my instant messenger, right? We're live. He's live on his show because we're all about connecting.
Yeah.
Let's start. So what year did you then shift from being involved in Web Girls to founding TechSpeak?
So it was an actual, all of the experience that I got at Web Girls, I joined, I always say I was given an opportunity of a lifetime to become a CTO at such an early age. I was in my early 20s.
Nice.
I was at the right time at the right place, and I said yes to a lot of opportunities even before I was ready. So prior to me joining Web Girls, so I joined Web Girls when I was still in school. I worked there for a few months and then got to know the systems, got to know how everything worked. And it just happened that the two guys that were there in tech, there was the three of us before then, they left over the next 6 months. And
Ooh.
because I was there, the default person who already knew all the systems, and I said, yes, of course I can do it. And we were in the startup with no money, right? That's how opportunities come to you. So I was, prior to going to work for a big company, already running the entire tech department of this startup before I even joined, was able to graduate. And when I went off to work for a big company, which is another story we can talk about, I didn't like it there because I went from holding the keys to the kingdom, literally, to being a big, small fish in a big pond. And throughout that whole 9 months, 11 months, I say I always lasted 11 months, I kept in touch with Web Girls and I still did work for them part time. And after 11 months of keeping in touch and connecting and networking and working with them, that's how that opportunity of being a CTO came to me. They said, well, you should leave them and come be the CTO. You can structure and run the organization and really understand how technology should be supporting our members. And of course, to me, it was a no-brainer, but everyone else thought I was insane.
Right. How do you leave the big world with a paycheck that correlates with big business
Yeah,
to go enter a very, very small minor startup at that time
yeah,
and help build a brand at a high level? But again, we still have to pay our rent.
exactly. Well, the trajectory of being in a small startup where I got to do everything. I had to learn how to build a team. I had to learn how to manage a team. I had to learn what processes worked. And
Mhm.
I also learned sales and business development and marketing. And that made me the well rounded CTO that I needed to become when I started going to speak and train at different conferences and startups. That was the beginning of me getting involved and understanding the problem that ultimately TechSpeak would solve, which is after every event that I did at a startup conference, I would have a huddle of entrepreneurs around me, and they would share their horror stories about how
Hey,
they,
Nelly, they pull you
yeah,
aside. Hey, Nelly, can I ask you the question? Oh, let me tell you, you can't imagine, when you said this, you
yeah,
can't imagine how this happened to me. Yep.
exactly. Yeah,
It's that group and that light bulb goes off of what can I do with this?
exactly. I heard so many horror stories, thousands and thousands of dollars lost. And actually, I blamed the developers for the longest time. I'm like, I couldn't understand how these developers are taking advantage of the poor entrepreneurs. And the
Mm.
more I thought about it, the more I actually started realizing, yes, there could be some bad developers, but most the number one reason why a lot of relationships don't work out is because of miscommunications. And so I
Right.
started focusing on teaching the entrepreneurs the process, the language, the how to set the right expectations. And when you know what to expect and how to set those expectations and how to communicate in a way that other people actually understand you, then you can actually see the red flags a lot sooner. That's what TechSpeak teaches. Essentially, I created the curriculum that I wish people gave me when I was becoming a CTO, right? I had to figure all of the processes out, and now I'm given
You wrote
that's
the
what I'm
book,
teaching.
right? You created that does, one of my favorite word, SOPs, systems and
Yeah,
procedures, right? So
yes.
when for the smaller entrepreneur, the startup, saying, how do we manage technology? And I just want to take a moment, viewers, as you're scrolling through LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other platform you're watching us on, please feel free. If something's resonating with you, put it out there saying, you know what, Nelly, I said yes to something too. Because there's amazing power when we started our conversation is the power of saying yes, even when you're unsure of what you're saying yes to. It has huge staying power. If you have a question for Nelly or myself, if you're curious to know if you're contemplating technology issues within your company, no resources are here. Ask the questions. Use this as a resource as well as a piece of information. So I think there's an enormous amount of power of that saying yes, and I sometimes worry that as we age, as we learn more as business leaders, our We become more hesitant in saying yes. When we're young, we're so ready to jump in with both feet. And in technology, and I'll be the first one to say it, like I did not grow up with technology, surprise, surprise. So it was truly something that I've learned in adulthood that can make it more challenging. So I wish when I got started, I had the resource of TechSpeak.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to taking or saying yes to something that you're not ready to, there's two things that I would recommend that helped me tremendously. Number one, having the confidence and the relationship with yourself to know that you can figure it out. Because unlike what most people think, that people who are successful, that they have all the answers and they've figured it out, the answer is absolutely not. Like 90% of my day is doing things that I have no idea about, but I know that I have the network, I have the resources, and I have the know-how. And if I need to, I'll put in the time to actually get it done. And if you have all of those components and you have the confidence in yourself that you can figure it out, then you can always say yes. And it's not going to be a lie, because getting the job done is not about knowing the answer. No one knows the answer. It's about understanding how to get from point A to point B in a way that is cost effective and efficient. So,
well, I have to say,
yeah,
what is resonating as you're talking is you're saying yes to figuring it out. You're not saying yes to this is how it's going to be done.
exactly.
And then when we say yes to we're going to figure it out, we know we can figure it out through our own mental process, right? Trial and error, reaching out to our network, our community, right? Resources, the resources that be. But what we're truly saying yes to is, yes, I'll figure this out for you. Not, yes, I know how to do this. And I did this for years this way.
And most women specifically are afraid to say yes until they have figured out everything. They can see all the pieces, but it's a very dangerous place to be in. And that's one of the reasons why I think as women, we don't get a lot of the opportunities, or we may get the opportunities, but we don't say yes to them. And so, a lot of the issues that we're facing as women, we're not on boards, or there's not enough founders. There's not like all of these lack of, right? I think as a result of us wanting to know all of the stuff, having all of the answers before we say yes. And if we just say, I know how to figure it out, nobody has the answers, then we can take a lot more risk.
It makes so much more sense. It makes so much more sense. And it helps us create clarity. Like I will say, when I was younger, I was that woman who went and did adventurous things. I backpacked through here, there, and everywhere. Oh, you want to, I was from 18 to 25. I was like, I got to jump out of a plane. So when my kid said, Mom, I think I want to try skydiving, I'm like, yeah, sure, it makes perfect sense. And people are like, you're going to sign off your kids going right? I was the one who like, yeah, this sounds like it. Believe me, it's not that I knew how to do everything, but I always said, yeah, this sounds fun. Let's do it. And that means yes, figuring it out. I've also noticed though, as I've gotten older, I think things through more. Now there's a good and bad to that, right? Yeah. And I will know as we look at women leaders in technology, we look at people who did not grow up with technology, it shouldn't hold us back from saying yes, because there's so many amazing resources out there.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually had no idea what a computer science degree meant and actually being a programmer meant when I went to major in computer science. I think I shared that story with you. I turned on a computer.
You have to share it. You have to share it, because I think it's great, because we've been interviewing on her success story various women leaders in technology. And some have said, yeah, I learned how to code. And I'm like, yeah, I still actually don't understand what that means.
Well, I thought that I grew up in the former Soviet Union. We were way behind in technology as a country. So we were lucky if we had a phone in every house, right? So even that technology didn't exist. So when I came to this country, the first few years of my life were just surviving, learning the language, learning the system, all of this stuff. So I did not have a computer. I knew nothing about tech. And I decided to major in computer science mainly because I knew that I was going to get a job when I got out of school 4 years later.
You
Right?
can get a job in that, right? It was something
Exactly.
you could go to school for and graduate, and people would want to hire you. And that was a very, very good conscious decision.
First generation immigrants are very, very practical. Let me tell you that. So that was my thought going in. But I knew that I didn't know how to use computers. Computers existed at the time, but I didn't know how to use them. So I thought they were going to teach me how to use Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel really, really well. I had no idea that you could write commands to the computer and it will actually do the thing that you're coding it to do. So I came from a non-technical background. I learned it as an adult. And I think that actually I have so much empathy for people who are as adults learning how to manage tech teams, how to communicate in that world, because that's another thing that I think makes me perfect for the work that I'm doing, because I have so much empathy for it. But a lot of the times when I had no idea what technology was, being able to know that there's going to be uncomfortable moments in everything new that you're doing. When you're learning something new, I wanted to quit. For the first 6 months of my computer science education, I wanted to quit every day. I had no idea why I was doing the things that I was doing. I had no idea what the point of it was. And then that's first 6 months of pain, because I actually had no choice to give up. That's, again, first generation immigrant. Failure was not an option. Once you commit to something, you go with it, no matter how painful it is. So I gave it the time, and I was lucky that I didn't have a choice, because after 6 months, once I understood the power of actually being the creator of technology rather than just the user of technology, that was so empowering for me. I loved every moment of it and the power that it gave me. So I think the lesson that we can use as adults, as kids, is like, give something a chance, because you never know whether you're going to love it. I hated it at the beginning. And so if you take on, I was talking to someone that I was mentoring. I told her to go take a martial arts class. Okay. And she went and did it. And it was so hard for her that she's like, I'm not going to do that again. And I told her, I said, okay, you have to do it 10 times before you get to quit. Mm-hmm. Because in the first time, you have no idea whether you didn't like it because it was so hard. You were out of shape. You weren't used to the movement. So many new things, right? Of course, you're
being exposed to a completely new language, a verbal language in a martial arts class, and the physical language. So you're learning two languages at once in a 45 to 60-minute session, and wondering, gee, I'm keeping up.
Exactly. So I actually told her she had to do it 10 times before she had a choice of whether or not she could give up on it, whether or not she liked it. Because what happens is, after you get over the pain of that initial learning, you start to see that, oh, I'm starting to learn a lot faster. Oh, I'm actually enjoying this part. Oh, I didn't know this. And so your brain actually starts to react to the same thing that you hated right at the beginning, to all of a sudden the endorphins are coming in and you're loving it. So when it comes to careers or anything new that you're learning, whether it's tech or something brand new that like Web3 now, like that's another totally mind-blowing thing, right? A lot of people just say, well, this is not true. This can't be successful. This makes no sense. Just like in the early days of the internet, something brand new, it's easier for our brain to dismiss it than to look into it, because it's just so new. But if you take on the curiosity mindset and you say, well, let me take a look at this and take baby steps to understanding it, you can actually understand the power of it. And put yourself so much more ahead than anyone else at your stage.
As you're talking, it literally brought back a memory for me. Back in the day when I danced, right? If we were learning a new routine, and the people who are not dancers saying, oh, that's not relevant. Think about it going to an exercise class. Okay. And they put a few moves together. If you're in that Zumba class or whatever it is, right? They put a few moves together, right? It starts with one, and you do it again, and you do it again. And then they add 1 and 2, and it's step 1 and then step 2. Then it's okay, 1, 2, 3. And you just keep adding on. And, as far as technology, I've used very much the same approach as saying, oh, there's all these platforms out here. I can't learn it. It's like, wait a second. What if I master how to send an email back in the day? What if I master how to do this? And then when we started doing LinkedIn Lives, Facebook Lives with a platform called StreamYard, I was like, oh, I can't use Zoom, but I know Zoom. It's so easy, like my back. And they said, wait a second. If I was able to learn that, what do I have to do to learn this? What's my first step that I have to do? What is my second step? Let's repeat it again and again and again. And the more you repeat something, the more proficient you get, the more comfortable and confident you get, the more you're willing to expand on learning more in that area.
Exactly. The base knowledge that you have to have in order to learn any new task, you have to give it the time and willingness. A lot of the advice that I give to non-technical people is to just never say, I don't want to do it or I can't do it. I always tell my daughter, can't is not allowed. Like you cannot say it. You cannot say can't. Because when you say can't, your brain literally shuts down. It prevents you from learning it effectively. So being curious and saying, okay, if in order for me to learn this, what are the 5 things that I need to do? Break it down into smaller tasks and taking action and making improvements every single day. It's actually doing something towards improving your skill in that area every day is better than not doing anything at all. Even if it seems like 5 minutes a day, right, is not going to make a big difference. 5 minutes a day is going to make a huge difference in the long term, because every day you're getting comfortable with something new. Your brain is already relaxing. You're already building that base and the foundation. So whether it's tech or not, that's how you do it.
I'm going to jump in because you said 2 things that I was talking about today. Okay. One, if anybody who are scrolling through, watching this video has followed Slater Success Live or Slater Success, on my website, slatersuccess.com, there's a video that's called 7 Traits of Great Leadership. One of those traits is, write it down, ladies and gentlemen, showing up with a what can I do attitude. Because so many times we're faced with challenges or obstacles that we feel can stop us, AKA learning a new piece of technology. And if you show up with the attitude of what can I do? It's like, I'm not going to master it, but if I could figure out how to open it up and sign in, if I could figure out how to navigate one piece, right? And I was running a group call of leaders earlier, and we were talking about the impact of consistency. If you do just what you're talking about, Nelly, if you do a little something every day, how it adds up. And we use the analogy of the turtle versus the hare. Why does the turtle win? Because there might be a baby step, but it takes that baby step every day. It has that consistency behind it.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, TechSpeak, you started it how many years ago?
Well, the first program I ran was back in 2012, September of 2012. A long time ago.
So in the last 10 years, what have you, from your consistency, and you're a consistent woman, I know this, what have you grown to and what are you doing today?
So when I launched TechSpeak, at TechSpeak, I talk about this concept of learn early, learn often, learn cheap. It actually goes very well with everyday things that we're doing when it comes to learning. And we just had the whole discussion about taking small steps to achieving tasks. And this whole learn early, learn often, learn cheap mindset is so perfect for that analogy, because it all focuses on how can we take this big task that we have, whether it's a decision or software or anything, right? You can use these concepts anywhere, and figuring out what's the first thing that I can do that can help me learn what the next step should be. And so I applied this even in my business with TechSpeak. I could have made it an online course. I could have done so many things with it, but I chose to do it as a boot camp that I would teach live. And what that allowed me to do is not perfect my content so much that it would stop me, right? It could take me years to develop the content.
Yes.
But I developed the framework, I developed the structure, I knew what I wanted to teach, but because I taught it live, what I was paying attention to as a teacher is what questions did people ask me? Where did they stumble? And through that, I learned how to modify the way I was explaining things. And because I was there live, I was able to address their questions. And the next iteration was better. And so when I decided to put it online, which the program is now online for anyone to take from any parts of the world, which scales,
Lovely.
right? Which is great.
That shows scalability.
But if I put it up online in my first iteration that I did in 2012, I would have to redo the program so many times. And so I basically de-risked the opportunity for myself. I was able to launch something in 3 months instead of years.
3 years. Let's be real.
Exactly. And I was able to generate revenue right away. I actually started as soon as I launched it, or I made the decision, I picked the date, I started marketing it before anything was ready. And that was actually the most necessary thing for me, because I underestimated how long it would take me. I thought it was going to take me 2 weeks to develop the curriculum. I'm like, I do this every day. Of course I can teach it very quickly. But I had to rethink how I was going to teach it, how to make it simple, how to teach lots of information in such a short period of time. So I needed that commitment. But again, I said yes before I was ready. I already had everything, and what was required at that point is this knowledge within me that I would, if I needed to work every night without sleep for the next 7 days to finish it, I would do it, because I had that relationship with myself. So I launched the first thing very quickly, and that allowed me to then learn very quickly on what that online version needed to be. And, the feedback that I get from the online version is like, wow, I can't believe how complete it is. And it is, because I've taught it so many times in person. Yeah.
So as we come to a close today, and listeners and viewers know you can reach out to Nelly and I, you can continue to make comments underneath the stream. But as our listeners and viewers want to know more, how can they connect to you, Nelly?
So I have techspeak.co is the website. Go to the website. There's 3 different webinars that are there now that are on demand that you can go and consume, teaching you all of the concepts that I teach on the learn early, learn often, learn cheap. If you are a non-technical founder who has an idea for a startup and you need to manage a team, I already share my entire process. I share all the different pitfalls that you need to look out for. So those are free classes. I also do lives and answer questions, get on my mailing list, and of course, connect me on social media. I'm Digital Woman everywhere. So it's easy to find me.
I love it. Well, I cannot thank you enough for joining me here today on Slater Success Live, for being part of Women Leaders in Tech. And our first time we're doing a series on women leaders in technology.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to speak with you, and let's not lose touch this time.
Exactly. And, know something. I'm a pretty straight shooter. I tried to do a series on women leaders in technology about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And when I put out all the announcements to all my networks, all of social media, I got one person interviewed. This time we have 6, 7, or 8. that consistency and that willingness to say, what can I do and what I can show up with. If you're enjoying this series, drop us a note. Let us know, because I'd love to do another series on women leaders in technology in the future, because I love to continue to learn, and the greatest way too. So Nelly, thanks again for joining me. And we will stay tuned to any comments that are coming through LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other platform. Feel free to reach out to Nelly, endorse and support what she's doing as a woman leader in technology.
Thank you, Ivy.
And stay tuned for more Slater Success Lives coming up in the next few weeks to a few months. Some interesting things coming later in the year. We do a series on nonprofit leaders. We do that from Thanksgiving through New Year's to support of how you can give as well as receive during the holiday season. So stay tuned. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or at slatersuccess.com. See you next time. Thank you.
Oh, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to leave or